Hello again, and welcome back to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here today because this is the beginning of something new. Actually, it's more like the beginning of something deeper. But first, let's check on astrology. So today, Tuesday, we are moving from the grounded, fixed earth energy of Taurus into the more thoughtful, mutable air energy of Gemini. Gemini season is here. Gemini is the first of the air signs and is ruled by the planet Mercury, which is our planet of communication, thought, and ideas. Geminis can tend to be chatty, endearing, and funny, and great communicators, but don't get on their bad side because they can love to gossip and be very passive-aggressive in their communication. And then on next Monday, Memorial Day, the 26th, we will have our new moon in Gemini. This new moon will be bringing us new ideas and ways to communicate with our closest people, and will show us areas where we can expand our mind past the sort of like the written instructions of life and remember to play and carry childlike wonderment around with us. So if you've been following the podcast for a while, you know that I love exploring self-worth, healing, and our consciousness. But lately, I've been feeling this pull, sort of like it's time to go deeper, to talk about parts of healing that aren't always as pretty or polished. So today, we're starting a brand new series on shadow work. What it is, why it matters, and how it's been a huge part of my own personal journey. Before we get into it, I want to make this clear that this is by no means everything that shadow work is. This is just my experience with it. It's not going to be any sort of like lecture. I'm not going to give you a list of steps for you to follow. That's a conversation that you and I can have at a different time if that's something you need. But this is more just a real personal experience, sharing all of the messy parts that I've experienced myself, the honest parts, and the healing parts too. So let's start with the basics. What is the shadow anyway? The term originally comes from Carl Jung. Jung was an analytical psychologist who was known for exploring things like collective unconsciousness, extrovert versus introvert, and the archetypes. He described the shadow as the unconscious parts of ourselves that we reject, suppress, or hide because we've been told that they're bad or too much or just not acceptable. The shadow isn't something evil, and it's not always something dark. It can actually be something really powerful that we just learn to fear, like anger, independence, ambition, even something like joy. It's any part of us that we reject. You might be thinking, well, who rejects joy? Maybe you know someone or are someone who feels like you're never ahead in life, like you're destined for bad things to happen to you. This can be a rejection of joy based on fear that it will be taken from you. Sometimes we tuck those parts away just to fit in or to survive. For me, I didn't even realize how much of myself I had buried until I was already in my 30s. So my wake-up call sort of started in the wreckage of my previous marriage. I had completely lost myself, my identity, who I was, what I wanted, everything. I felt like I had no say in anything. I had no say in where we lived. I didn't feel like I was heard. I had to grow up so fast and take care of someone who didn't really appreciate me. I kept trying to prove that I was worth choosing, just hoping that one day he'd show up with a promise I couldn't refuse. But, spoiler alert, that promise never came. And when I finally did walk away, I felt so free, but I also felt very heartbroken and ashamed. Shame came a little while after, because leaving that relationship kind of gave me that new sense of freedom that I was searching for all along. So The feelings of shame didn't start to come until after I sort of started to settle into the life that I'm living now. I was so disappointed in myself for tolerating so much, for staying so long. Why did I let this happen? Why didn't anyone help me see beyond the surface? Why didn't someone come and save me? I felt like my choices were taken away from me, like I had to be an addition to him rather than allowed to be my own person despite who he was. I silenced a lot of myself to survive. My voice, my freedom of choice, and my sense of self-worth was all tied into making sure that he was successful, at least in my mind. I say that because communication was not something that either one of us was strong in, nor were boundaries. So I can only say from my perspective how I felt in the relationship. I shrunk to fit a mold that I determined would be the easiest for him to digest. At the time, it was easier for me to shrink myself than to open the lines of communication to further criticism. I was just trying to be what I thought he needed without knowing what it was that he actually needed. That's when I realized this is part of shadow work. Shadow work isn't about healing just the pain other people have caused you. It's about healing the pain you caused yourself by not listening to your own voice. After leaving, things came up that I wasn't expecting. Loneliness hit me like a wave, and this was pretty recent too. And even though I was lonely in the marriage, at least there was someone there. I'd find myself wondering, did I make a mistake? Should I have stayed? But that thought always led me back to the truth. Freedom is worth the grief, because I am no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's life. I'm no longer afraid to be bold or intense. I finally get to be me fully. I no longer have to barter my authenticity for approval. And it has expanded my relationships romantically and platonically exponentially by being able to really step into my honesty and be authentic and know that I'm not too much. This scared me more than I expected it to. The real challenge was facing the part of me that still wanted to be saved. I still do this. I still find myself being the victim, waiting for someone to come and save me. There was and still are times where I am waiting for someone to show up, scoop me up out of my mess, and say, "Don't worry, I've got you." It's hard to admit, but shadow work is all about honesty. I realized that even though I was free, I hadn't learned to fully trust myself yet. I was still hoping that someone else would make the hard choices for me, because I didn't know if I could handle it alone. This spreads across my relationships even still. I feel secure in someone else's certainty. If someone else can decide for certain on something they want to do or to be, I feel safe being invited along for the ride. And I have honestly looked at it as gratitude for the opportunity a lot of times. But I had to recognize that this was just another way for me to shrink myself by living in someone else's shadow. That's the part of me that I avoided, but also the part of me that taught me the most. One of the biggest ways that shadow work has changed me is through boundaries. I don't people please anymore. Well, I definitely don't near as much as I used to. We all have moments that we get caught off guard and agree to something we wanted to say no to, or have times that we want to feel connected and included. But now I don't say yes to things that cost me my peace. I speak up when something hurts me. I say no without apologizing for it. That's a version of me that my past self never could have imagined. I used to think I had to earn my place in people's lives by being helpful or easy or agreeable. Now I know that just by existing, just by simply being me, that I am worthy. My kindness, my heart, my soul, those are my gifts. And if someone gets a seat at my table, it's because I hand-selected them to. This has been such a sacred shift for me. I don't have to earn my place in this world. I already belong. I won't sacrifice myself to prove my value. My presence and my wholeness is the gift. So before I wrap this episode of Shadow Work up, I want to clear something up. Because I know a lot of people get scared when they hear the word shadow. I know from experience that some people have seen it as like sort of a dark or a demonic kind of energy, and it's absolutely not that. And shadow work is not about fixing what's broken in you, because you are not broken. It's not about judging your dark parts or pretending that they aren't there. It's about accepting every version of yourself, even the ones that don't make sense anymore. Even the parts of you that once helped you survive, but now maybe are holding you back. You cannot live in victimhood and also expect change to come. You have to be willing to shed your old skin and to sit with your rawness. To love every part of your journey, even the parts you're still learning to forgive. Shadow work isn't about judging or punishing yourself. It's a self-reunion. It's getting comfortable holding space for every version of you. The protector, the wounded child, the person who needs to control everything, and the victim. All of it without judgment. Accepting those parts of you is what will help you to finally begin evolving. Radical self-acceptance is so crucial. You can be completely self-aware, but with that sometimes comes critical rejection, criticism, and scrutinization. You must be willing to accept that you are a human being who has flaws and makes mistakes, and be willing to learn from them. So if you're listening and you're at the edge of starting your own shadow work journey, let me say this. Be honest but soft with yourself. Make sure that you are being sincere but compassionate. The parts of you that you're afraid to look at, they're not monsters, they're just messengers. They're old stories that you have grown to tell. They're survival strategies, and they're ready to be seen. You don't need to fight these dark versions of you. You need to love them into transformation. Be open to transmuting all parts of you, shadow and light, to help you shift from surviving to living. This episode is the start of a series that means a lot to me, and I hope it speaks to something real in you too. If this resonated, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, share this with someone who needs it, and get ready for next week's episode, where we will talk about how the shadow is born, especially through childhood and conditioning. But until then, take care of your soul. Be gentle with your shadows. They're just waiting for the day you stop hiding from yourself. Thank you so much for being here today. I'll see you next week.